as a producer.
Shells falling down upon my face, full moon rising, all the stars in place. Skin is cold, and howling more. It needs scratching and flesh and bone. Down the fleece and stop the sheep I pray. Seek the weak while a shepherd sleeps awake. With her eye there, the howling moan. It needs scratching, flesh and bone. Gnashing teeth and my eyes lit green, the gray of my gold shining, lust of blood, where the sun will fade. Time I'm blinded, the howling moan. It needs scratching, flesh and bone. Skin is crawling, howling moan. It needs scratching, flesh and bone.
Rise and shine. Pour yourself a cup of coffee and tune in to Good Morning Aurora. News, weather, and really cool interviews. Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m.
Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. The time is 8 o'clock a.m. All that And on time, look at that. That's so awesome. You're listening to and watching Good Morning Aurora, the second largest city's first daily news podcast. You just heard a great song by our guest today, Mr. Noah Gabriel Giblin. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Curtis?
Pretty good, man.
Yeah.
What was the name of that song?
That song's called Howl and Moan.
Howl and Moan.
Yeah.
I like that. Like you said, it's for Halloween.
Yeah,
It didn't sound that spooky. It sounded more...
it's a song about werewolves. So
okay.
And just in general, the duality of people.
Okay.
We all got something hiding that comes out every once in a while.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
So for those who are unfamiliar with you, where were you born and where are you from?
I'm from Aurora.
Okay.
Like northeast side, like bordering on like Naperville and Batavia area.
Right. Bless you.
Yeah. So I grew up there. Going to, I was right on the border of Naperville, so I went to like 204, schools, and then high school. My parents sent me over to Marmion, so that was then I spent much of my time wandering around Aurora and Batavia and the Tri-Cities and stuff like that. I still do.
Okay, is that where you picked up your love of guitar? Is that where it started?
It started at home.
Okay.
Yeah, like some of my earliest memories, were of my dad just kind of strumming away on a guitar.
Okay.
And it's funny because I've been teaching him now the last couple of years, but he knew a handful of chords, and he would strum some Eagle songs or some Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young songs, and I just remember just being fascinated and just wanting to sit near him when he did it, and music was always just something that fascinated me.
Right. How long you been playing guitar now?
I picked it up seriously when I was 12, so I think that's 27 years now that I've been playing it.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, when you play, you write your own songs. You write your own material.
Yes.
Okay. Have you always written your own material?
I have. Yeah. I mean, I was like recording really terrible albums back in high school. Just.
You talking about like garage stuff with the homies?
Not even. No, it was. I had developed a technique where I didn't have like a real recorder, but I had a boom box that I could record on, and then I had like one of those old school little rectangular. You got the red button.
Yes.
And the play button together.
And that records.
And it records. So I would record myself playing and singing, and then I'd put one tape over here and one tape on the other side, and then I'd play the tape and then record more stuff on top of it. So like by the end I'd have like, just a lot of hiss and a little bit of my terrible music.
Oh, how times have changed, right?
Yeah.
But you still
it's
made
a process.
But so you went from there to playing at Pollyanna Brewing tonight.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. 8:30 is the show.
8:30. Yes.
Who are you playing with?
So I'm playing with I've got a cellist buddy, Ryan Carney. He's phenomenal.
Shout out Ryan Carney.
Yes, Ryan's awesome. He plays all over town. He does a lot of, he was just on WGN recently because he's been playing at a nursing home, and his partner in crime over there is a 101-year-old woman.
Really?
Who, his playing has sparked her, her playing again. So they sit down and do like a piano and cello duo and entertain the folks there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then he brought in his buddy Chris Palmerin, who is a phenomenal percussionist. They were in a band called Anthony and the Tramps together.
Anthony and the Tramps.
Anthony and the Tramps.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're doing our little trio thing. It's an acoustic cello percussion thing. And yeah, we'll be at Pollyanna at 8:30 tonight.
Okay. Now, you guys been playing already before, or is this your first time? It's not your first time with these guys.
No.
Okay.
Chris has joined us on a handful of shows, but Ryan and I have been like playing probably like 2-3 times a month, like this whole year.
Okay.
We had started doing stuff together before everything shut down, and obviously, it had to go to the wayside. But
of course,
when things started opening up, Colin Ryan, who he's one of the guys that runs Tunes for a Minute, so they booked some clubs in the area. He reached out and he's like, I remember you doing like an acoustic cello duo thing, and I think that would work really well at this Brother Chimp. So you know, he threw the idea out there, and I called up Ryan, and you know, the show just went great, and so we've been doing stuff, you know, as often as we can since then.
What's your style?
I don't know.
Okay.
I've tried to make a point out of, you know, when I make an album, I try and do something different each time. I mean, the best way to describe it is rootsy Americana, but I mean, okay. I've done stuff from like grungy to power trio blues type stuff to Americana folk, some R&B stuff. I really love music, so it's like I try and find different aspects of like the different genres, and when I feel like I don't like to force things, but when something comes through and it makes sense, I try and use that to, you know, head in a different direction. But, okay. I kind of, you know, my favorite artists are guys like Ben Harper and Elvis Costello and Tom Waits and Bob Dylan. Waits. You know, guys that are chameleons. You know, I mean, they make a point out of confounding their audience beautifully every time they come out.
I've been, you know, as a person who is a listener, I haven't played an instrument. What I've been impressed by, but also kind of trying to see and learn is you know, a lot of times you don't know where blues ends and rock begins. Yeah. I mean, where the line is so, I think that's the beauty of it. Yeah. The line is so fluid. Yeah. Yeah. It's so fluid. I mean, back when there were CD stores, right? You go to the island, it's like classic rock. There's like B.B. King in there. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I've been impressed by that, but it's also allowed me to expand my horizons with music too.
Oh yeah. Well, and I feel like we're you know, right now, you know, in good ways and bad ways, the walls are coming down between music and genres. Like in good ways, like you know, for example, Elvis Costello did a great album with the Roots. It was awesome. Yeah. So you have like, and he's done everything. I mean, he's done stuff from like jazz to like, you know, almost like Broadway, like standard type crooning things, to punk and, you know, everything in between. But, you know, so you have these walls coming down, but it's also produced what's, you know, you're seeing in Nashville, which is just like a horrible mess of country and pop music. But, you know, everything, you know, I think on the road to good stuff, there's always weird missteps and strange happenings. So it's like it's a really cool time in music where you just see like guys like Dave Grohl, who just, you know,
Foo Fighters.
Yeah. Yes. You know, he just loves music, and, and you can tell because he's fearless in the things that he'll cover and do, and the projects that he'll throw himself into, and I think that's great. I think it's really tough to just say I'm this and be that. You know, AC/DC's like the only band that's been able to pull that off and, you know, do the same thing for, you know, their entire career.
True. They've never had like a Wu-Tang remix or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, AC/DC sounds like AC/DC. Yeah, you know.
Yep. So does like Megadeth, Metallica, Ozzy, those guys have a sound. Yeah.
Well, and you know what? They do, and even those guys have like morphed in certain ways, you know. But yeah, it's just, you know, I like chameleons. I like people that, you know, enjoy music and are not afraid to expose themselves and you know, try and create things outside of their, you know,
their comfort zone.
Yeah.
What does it take to be a good guitar player?
Time.
Okay.
I mean, that's everything. You know, I teach music out in Batavia at Music Matters. You know,
it's like downtown Batavia, right?
Yeah. It's the old Louise White school building, and you know, the thing that I notice with kids right now, and maybe it's been this way forever, and I'm just now an adult and I can analyze it, but this whole like the TikTok culture, this whole like 15-second attention span, kids have a hard time truly dedicating themselves. I have some really good students, but it's taken a long time to get them there, because it's like I'm trying to break through that wall of like, you got to pay attention.
Right.
It's all about practice. I mean, even the greatest guitar players will tell you it didn't come easy.
Right.
They spent 8 hours a day playing. They lived with their instrument. Right. I'm not the guitar player I want to be. I'm still trying to be a good guitar player. Really? It's like I'm proficient. I can use it as a tool. It helps me to create. But I'm not. I look at other guitar players and I'm like, I want to be that.
Who is that? Who is that, for example?
Oh, well, everyone. No.
Right.
I mean, Chris Whitley is like one of my biggest heroes. But I look at a lot of local guys, I've been lucky enough to, there's some incredible musicians around here. I see guys like John Papadolius, who is just like incredibly proficient in jazz, blues, rock. I think he can even do like classical. I mean, he is a schooled, like, he's a schooled musician, Right. I worked with Adam Gardner on an album, and I went to high school with him, and he went down to Nashville. He's doing big things in Nashville for some big names, but he's living back in Aurora. Right. And they just, he's just in demand, so they'll bring him down and stuff like that. But we recorded this album, and like, he played a lot of the guitar on there, and it made sense because he played beautifully, and what he was doing fit the songs better than what I would do. I'm still developing. I have ideas. I can think, but I'm like a rock, blues, guitar player. I mean, when it comes down to it, that's where I'm comfortable, especially in the improvisational world, playing leads and stuff like that. But just takes time. You got to dedicate yourself to it.
Okay. The time is 8:12. Good morning, everybody out there. We're here with our dear friend Noah Gabriel Giblin, who's playing tonight at Pollyanna Brewing Company with Ryan Carney and Christopher Palmeria. All right. Yeah. Ryan Carney, I saw in the chat, he said Marmion. Shout out to Marmion. Johnny Felix, good morning to you. Carly Beeritz, good morning. Aisha Saxon, good to see you. J.L. Harris and Cheryl Brownell. The time is 8:13. So will this be your first time playing at Pollyanna?
No. I've done this is probably like my 4th show. Okay. And even before it was Pollyanna, it used to be a really cool blues club way back in the day. And I was lucky enough to play on that stage. It was a stage that, guys like Dickie Betts and Carl Weathersby and, a whole slew of like real deal, Tab Benoit. I mean, great blues musicians played on that stage, and I was lucky enough to be there during that. But Pollyanna's a great little spot. They've turned that place around because it's sat empty for almost 10 years. Wow. Just kind of festering on the river, right? Waiting for someone to breathe new life into it.
Waiting for Noah Gabriel. Yeah. Now let's talk about Preservation. Preservation is in Geneva. Yep. How many times have you played there?
Too many to count. Okay. I don't even know. Okay. Yeah. No, that's become one of my regular spots. Right. Tess over there.
You seem to have built yourself a following over there too.
Yeah, I guess, I really don't know what I show up, I play.
I was looking at the picture, scrolling like, damn, it's a lot of pics.
Yeah. No, and I've got a lot of good people that come out to see me, and really, I think that's a testament to their place over there. I mean, I've been lucky enough to walk in, and my first show there, nobody knowing me, I had a crowd of people, and they, that's what I need, Right. A lot of places, breaking into new places is difficult because they want you to bring a ton of people, and it's, you kind of need that symbiotic thing where it's like, I'll bring who I can, but
right,
when you have a good spot that's already bringing people out, that's when it really tends to work. And they've built a nice spot with that outdoor bar and everything.
Right.
People just love it.
What's the relationship like when you are dealing with the place that's new or may be new? Do people reach out to you and say, hey, we'd like you to play, or do you approach them for it, or is it a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Word of mouth definitely happens. There have been some places that reach out to me, having heard me or seen me. I think Tess is one of those people who she had seen me around town, and she reached out and said, I really want you to come down and play.
Shouts out to Tess.
Yeah. And then other places, I'm sending out emails regularly, trying to find new spots to play, trying to branch out, and just get in front of new faces. My whole approach, and it's I don't know if it's to my detriment or not, has been I've really tried to put the original material out in front.
Okay.
A lot of people, even songwriters, fall into the habit of playing nothing but covers to appease people, and then their music kind of just starts to fade. And I've always been afraid of that. So I've always, pushed my original stuff, and just, the people that like it,
mm-hmm.
they like it because they like me, and that's what I want.
And it resonates with them.
Yeah. I don't want to be just like picking up people who like me because I can do
the Eagles good,
this song really well, and stuff like that.
And see, here's I'm glad you brought that up, because as on the outside looking in, when I go to different places, I'll use Ballydor and Aurora, for example, right? Ballydor has had a bunch of different bands, Get the Lead Out, they do Zeppelin.
They're a tribute.
Right, Blackened, they do Metallica.
Yeah.
But like the guys, and not just those bands, but when you talk to some of these guys, they have like a catalog of their own stuff. And again, I'm always like, dude,
well,
like, and I get it, you want to be relevant and want to take some time, but you got to kind of go out there and take a chance, right?
Yeah. Well, that's been my attitude,
Sure.
But I get it. There's money in that,
right?
And some people are trying to make a career out of music, and it's easy to make a career out of doing the tribute thing. You're going in, you're giving the bars a surefire win. Look, this is the music that we play. People love this music. They're going to come to hear this music, and then you just have to be able to like present it in a good fashion. When you approach a bar and say like, "Look, I play original stuff. I'm good. I don't suck. I promise."
Right.
They're a little apprehensive. I mean,
Right.
All they want to know is how many people are you bringing out.
Exactly.
And that's been the hard line throughout the 20 years I've been doing this, is trying to convince places that my original stuff is worth the time. But I know guys like that too. I've got friends in some of those bands, and like they talk trash sometimes about
Sure.
being in those bands because they're letting their passion fall to the wayside. They wish they could do, and they could. It's I think it's you're choosing money over passion,
right?
And if that's
taking
what
the
you
sure
wanted,
thing instead of taking a chance, kind of.
And I'd rather, I've spent the last 15, 20 years just painting houses, grinding it out, working a day job, so that when I go out and play music, I'm playing what I want to play,
right,
and not playing what I think people want me to play. And I'm trying to, I've gone, I know with Ryan we do a lot of covers and stuff, but we're doing things in a way that we want to, and we're mixing in originals at the same time. It's like a 50-50 split.
Okay.
But when I go out and play like an acoustic show, it's like 80% original and 20% cover, and I'll do 3 to 4 hours nonstop just playing, because that's, that's what I'm there to do, So my whole thing has been to just, push what I'm doing, because I've spent so much time creating this stuff. Like,
right.
Why not expose it? No one's going to listen to it if they don't know it exists.
True.
So,
the time is 8:20. Now, what was the name of your first album?
In Aurora.
In Aurora. Okay. Where can we find In Aurora? Where can we listen to it at?
Everything's on Spotify.
Okay.
So, and almost all my records are down at Kiss the Sky Records in Batavia. If you're a fan of CDs and vinyl records, I have some of those, and they're down there.
Okay.
But Spotify's got it under Noah Gabriel, under Noah's Arcade. That was my
Noah's Arcade?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. A little
I
throwback
get it.
to Wayne's World.
Yeah. I like that.
So we were like, I had moved to Austin, Texas, and my wife got a job down there. I'd always wanted to go there. Stevie Ray Vaughan is like, when I was growing up, that was everything. I spent years just trying to play like him and sound like him, and I never got close. But it was, he was everything, as a guitar player to me. And so Austin was kind of like a mecca, and we, she got a job down there, and we moved down there, and it was funny because before we left, Steve over at Kiss the Sky was doing these Made in Aurora projects, where he was gathering a bunch of local artists and like putting out vinyl records featuring us and our music. And I had met Justin O'Connell and Chad Watson during these sessions. They were playing with Kevin Trudeau and a couple other people.
Kevin Trudeau.
Yeah.
He's the homie.
Yeah.
Shout out to Two Brothers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we got, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, man.
There's lots. But so I met them, and like, we did this project, and right before we moved to Austin, down at Two Brothers, we had a big birthday bash for Steve from Kiss the Sky. I think it was like his 60th birthday.
All right.
So all of us got together and threw like a big, we put together a big show. And I had asked Justin and Chad, hey, do you mind like, backing me up, And we went up there and we did like a couple Hendrix tunes and just like ripped them, and we just had a blast. And I was like, I felt refreshed, it was something new, it was something different. I had been playing with the same people for, probably 8 years at that time, and it was just, it's nice when you play with someone different. You get a different influence, you get a different feel, and then we up and left, and I'm like, well, that could have been cool. So my wife Rachel, she's like, you gotta call those guys when we get back into town. And sure enough, I did, and we formed, our band, which the name came when we went to like we were all hanging out at the Bruin View at Two Brothers for Wayne's World. It was like the big anniversary. I think Tia Herrera had come into town and all this stuff.
I remember. It made the news.
Oh yeah. So like we're sitting there and we're watching it. We've been trying to figure out a band name, and like Noah's Arcade pops up, and we're like, how did we not think of that?
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a long way around, but
no, it's all good. No, it's all good. It's your show, my brother. The time is 8:23. Kyle Shimshak, what's up, Curtis? And you know Kyle too?
Yeah.
Dude, Kyle, what's up? Where you been keeping this dude? Kyle Shimshak is a great brother, fellow friend, known him for many years, Army vet. He's the man. Kendi Toledo, good morning. Cheryl Brownell, good morning to you. And Ryan Carney, once again, good morning. Time's 8:24. Okay, now remember that thing I was telling you about the casino and all that news. All right, so I'm gonna get rid of this from 8:25 until 8:30. Monica, if you'd be so kind, take a brother to a personal commercial. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now I know what you're thinking. First of all, I owe the people of Aurora. As I said, for days now, they've been hearing that Curtis was going to tell his little spiel about the casino, and he was going to let us know a couple of the ins and a couple of the outs. Well, the reason why it took me a couple of days, because like any good students, I had to do my homework. And first things first, we're not going to belabor the point on this. If you tune in Monday, I might give you a little bit more, but What I want to say is there is a purpose to the news, and you guys may not realize it, but the news is an ongoing thing. And the reason why we tell you guys about all of the morass and the minutia of city council and SB this and HB that and 22-03 is because if you follow that, you can see what action can be taken and what action cannot be taken. I was very disappointed when the casino vote passed on Tuesday, not because I was against the vote, because I thought moving the casino is a good idea, but because so many people were in consternation, such gnashing of the teeth, such wailing in the fire pits over something that had no chance of being reversed. In 2019, Aurora city officials and State Senator Linda Holmes went to great lengths to lobby and push for a change in Illinois gaming law that allowed a key proponent to take place. And that was the end of riverboat gaming. Now, there used to be a law that said casinos could only be built on water. That was it. Not only that, the only place where you could play the slots and VGTs, video game terminals, was at casinos. That was the old days. So if you were a city that didn't have a waterway in your town, you couldn't have a casino. Then when the law got changed to allow VGTs to be outside of casinos, they started popping up everywhere. Why? The answer is very simple. For those bars and restaurants that were in a town that had a casino on water, they had no way to really compete against the monolith of a casino that's making all the money. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So, what do? Hey, Senator, can you get this changed? Legislator, we need to have a video game terminal in here so I can make a little money. Sounded great. So that's what they did. But what happened was, and I got the numbers right here. Okay, here's what happened. There it is. There were over 40,000 VGTs that sprang up. 40,000 in the state of Illinois. There's more VGTs, video gaming terminals, operating than there are casinos or operating inside of casinos, taking money away from casinos. Now, what happened was casinos couldn't really compete. So they made a change to Illinois gaming law, and that bill was called SB 516. It did not end casino gaming, far from it. It allowed for casinos to no longer have to be by a river or in a town that has a river. The state dropped the requirement that casinos be on an actual boat that could float and cruise on water. That was the beginning of it. Now, this article that I have here is from April 27th of 2019, and it says, if SB 516, which passed the Illinois State Senate less than 2 weeks ago, remember 2019, becomes law, there would be no more boats and no more rivers in riverboat gaming. According to State Senator Linda Holmes, quote, "If you think of it, what river is the Des Plaines Casino on?" She was one of the sponsors of the bill. She was a sponsor because the bill originated from a request by Penn National Gaming Incorporated, owners of Hollywood Casino. Oh, it goes on. Remember, this article is from 2019. The time is 8:29. Mayor Irvin said the two were working in lockstep to allow the casino to move from its location downtown to a potential hotel convention center complex at Forest North Avenue interchange, Interstate 88. Oh, 2019? Mayor Irvin confirmed that the city's development department currently is doing a hotel study, as well as a comprehensive plan for the Farnsworth Avenue corridor. While any casino move would be a ways off, he said the legislation is, quote, to be ready for the future. Now, here's when we'll put a flag in the conversation. Ready for the future. April 27, 2019. That following city hall or city council, that was the time to start with petitions. The big check prop thing. You saw the check prop, right? That was the time That was the time to pack the city hall. Whose house? That was the time. All of that petitioning and campaigning that happened a few weeks, there was no way on earth that something that took this long, that took this much effort to get a law changed, could be stopped by props. Now, you know I love you all. I'm telling you this because I want you to get ready for the future, right? Pay attention to the news every single day. Watch the city council meetings all the time, every Tuesday. Bookmark the page. Because if you really want to make change, if you really want to have your voice be heard, and if you really want to be at the front of the line for concrete and effective communication, you have to be ready and not behind. The time is 8:31. All right, I took an extra minute with that. But anyway, now that we got that out the way, Noah, Amy Christine is here. Good morning, Amy Christine. Bizzle Tizzle is here. That's Brent Jimenez. That's his name. And Maria Chirito is here. Good morning to you as well. Time's 8:31. I got a big question for you.
I might have a big answer.
Okay. What's wrong with the world, and how can music fix it?
Man, I have always believed that music can fix it. There's a lot wrong with the world. I think one of the biggest things wrong with the world is there's a lot of shouting and not a lot of listening.
Okay.
I think music has the ability to convey messages in a way that are not offensive.
Okay.
That are palpable.
Right.
You pair a message with a good melody, and you can get it through people's ears. Music in general, like I saw, I didn't see it personally, but you look back and the 60s and 70s, the revolution that took place during Vietnam and the change that took place, music was on the front lines of that.
It was, yep.
And me being the crazy guy that I am, I think something has changed in the way popular music is shoved in people's faces. Back then, like, you had like real, true, great artists, beautiful music, poignant music, and it was on display. You had people working in radio that cared about music.
Right.
It wasn't, radio's become a job. People go to school to learn how to be a radio personality.
Sick.
And you see them move from station to station,
right.
from, whatever genre of music to the other. Radio DJs, I mean, there was a reason that pirate radio was a thing in the UK. They saw the danger of music speaking to people.
Right.
And they tried to cut it off. And the people that truly cared and wanted to get that music out, those were the people behind the microphone,
right.
on the boats, putting their hides on the line to get that important music out. Music doesn't always have to have like a huge, deep meaning, but music brings people together. You see it at live concerts. People share a moment. Everyone's. I don't know if it was, once again, Dave Grohl, I think, said it, but he's like, you go to a concert and you see like 50,000 people, and they're all singing the words to a song, and to every one of them, it means something different. A good song speaks to something inside of people that, I don't think you can explain it. Music is the universal language. If you believe in string theory and that realm of physics and stuff, where they're talking about, like, you break down an atom, you break down the quarks, the smaller parts of the atom, you get down to the most finite pieces of matter, and they're strings that vibrate. Well, music is vibration. It's something that, babies can hear it.
Right.
You can play it for children in the womb, and it connects with them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even know what it is. So music has the ability to break through language barriers. It has the ability to just, it makes people feel something. Even deaf people, you give them a good strong beat, and they can feel something. But I feel like music, when it's in the right hands, when you have the right people putting the music out there, I feel like since the 60s and 70s, there's been like a concerted effort to remove a lot of the thought-provoking music from the mainstream.
I can agree.
Maybe I'm crazy.
No, I can kind of agree with that on a limited scale. You're a musician. I'm not. But specifically the 60s. I mean, music and Walter Cronkite. It's been said that's why America lost Vietnam.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it was the combination of why and everything else going on in the world, plus the ability to see like combat streamed into your TV that was not happening before.
Oh yeah.
It now I don't know about the banning, but I think to that effect too, like what music did, and you're talking about radio too.
Yeah.
What they did was they stifled the creativity and they put more business to it.
Well, yeah, and that's what I mean. Like even with the radio and stuff, most FM radio is owned by like what, 3 companies?
Yep.
And those 3 companies, here's our classic rock station.
Right.
Here's the list of songs you're allowed to play.
Right.
Here's our alternative station. Here's the list of songs. Like, I mean, literally,
right.
You cannot. I have friends in radio, and when they work for those big stations, they can't touch things that are outside of their playlist without facing repercussions. It's a weird thing. Whereas it used to be, people would get into radio to push the music that they're hearing down the street.
Exactly.
To push the bands that they just saw over the weekend and stuff like that. You're not allowed to. It's all, they don't consider it payola anymore or
right.
anything like that, but it is, And these major labels, they pay to push these certain artists, and that's what you hear, A lot of people think that good music doesn't exist because they turn on the radio and they hear garbage.
Right.
There's incredible music out there, but you have to seek it out now. And, the internet has allowed people access to that stuff if they're willing to invest the time. But, at the same time, a lot of this stuff that people are getting into, it diminishes people's attention span. People, Spotify is, a lot of people love it, but it's bad for a lot of reasons. Like, the fact that you can just press play and walk away and like a limitless amount of music just flows through, it becomes background noise. Not a lot of people invest time. I remember junior high and stuff, everybody I knew, they had their bands, they had their music that they loved. Like right. Music was like, and I don't know if it was just the school that I'm at or I was at, but I feel like, kids when they connect with something like it, they latch onto it. I look at my 2 boys and whether it's like a movie that they watch and then they want to watch it like 100 times,
right.
Or it's a song that they love and they want to hear it 100 times.
Yeah. Or it's a band you love and you got the patch on your jacket.
Yes. Something happens when you enter that work world and get older, and all of a sudden your responsibilities change and you have to focus on making that money and all this stuff. Some people don't try and find new music and they're stuck listening to the stuff they listened to in high school.
Right.
Or if they do, it's floating there as background music. Spotify encourages lackadaisical listening. People don't have to invest themselves in it.
Right.
It's free. It's there. If you don't like it, you throw it away.
Right.
When I grew up, I didn't have a lot of money. My family, we worked hard. Like, I know I went to Marmion, but my dad painted that school every summer. I was there with him painting. My brothers were there. We had to work our way through that school.
Right.
I worked in the bookstore. I worked jobs outside of school. We were not a family of means. My parents are still now in a situation where they're trying to crawl out of a hole they dug themselves into.
Sure.
To give us a better position in life. But when I bought music, I would buy it on a whim, and I would put it on, and if I didn't like it the first time, I just bought it, and
Right.
I'd have to listen. And some of my favorite albums were albums that I bought and didn't like right away.
Right.
Because it didn't hit me. You know, pop music and this pop country stuff is, I say constructed, because there is a method to it. Like, I mean, you know, people are learning how to write like this.
Mm-hmm.
It is manufactured in such a way that it's hooks, and not a lot of depth.
Right.
You know, so it
Catchy,
grabs you.
reel them in. Yep.
It grabs you right away, and you're stuck singing the same line because there's not much else to it.
Right.
You know, and when you start, you know, digging into the lyrics, there's no depth. Like you're not walking away like learning something about the world or yourself, or like, you know, to me the greatest artists, you know, they don't offer answers. They put forward questions. You know, I mean, you should be searching for answers your entire life. You know, that as soon as you think you've got it all figured out, there's something you better step back and like reinvestigate. You know,
Right.
Because the world is always shifting, and art to me is a reflection of life in that it should be constantly evolving. You know, and I look at my personal career, and I know a lot of people think I'm crazy because I've released a lot of stuff, but to me, the art is in the evolution. You know, I can look back at my first album and laugh at it because, like, you know, there's stuff on there that's just terrible.
Right.
You know, I don't sound like myself. My voice sounds different. I play a little bit different. The songs, like, there's a couple that are really strong, and then there's a couple that are like really hokey. You know, I've been really enjoying going back, you know, getting ready for this show, because I've reconnected with old friends that I haven't played with in forever. My buddy Gary, Michael, Andrew, and Craig. They were, I was 19, and they were all, you know, not Andrew, but Gary was like 50. You know, I've been hanging out with guys twice my age since I was old enough to sneak into bars.
Right.
And I learned a lot from them, you know, and they have, you know, they guided me through my first couple records and stuff like that. But, you know, I think that that is what is missing from the popular realm of music. You know, it's all, you know, everything seems very contrived in that world.
Right.
And it's, you know, I don't want to say it's not dangerous. You know, music, it doesn't have to be dangerous, but it has to be thought-provoking. You know,
it shouldn't be bland or watered down. It shouldn't be influenced by the person. It should be true to the artist, I think.
Yeah.
Nobody should put their thumb on the scale of it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's, you know, once again, that's like what I see the danger in, like, you know, falling into like the tribute and cover band thing. The second you start like using your creative powers to just make money and appease people, you're throwing it out the window.
Right.
I mean, you know, I always joke, it's like Star Wars and the Force, right? So many people are given this wonderful gift, you know, the ability to connect through music, the ability to play, to understand it and create. And some people use it for all the wrong reasons. Some people
True.
go to the dark side and they use it strictly to make money. Unfortunately, the music business in general, it's on the dark side. As like
it is the dark side. Yeah.
It's terrible. I mean, the few contracts that have come my way are horribly detrimental to the artist. I'm lucky enough to have, friends and stuff, lawyers who will look at it and be like, don't touch that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of young kids with stars in their eyes don't have someone over their shoulder. Tom Petty released an album called The Last DJ that, it just dismantles the music business in a beautifully thought-provoking way. I mean, he lays it out there, They take advantage of people. I know people who got stuck with record contracts where they now owe like $100,000. They're in debt. We're going to give you a development deal. We're going to front you $200,000, and you're going to cut an album and go on the road. Well, what they don't tell you is that you're paying $10,000 per song that you're recording. That's coming out of there.
Right.
When you go on the road, you're paying for everybody that's on the road for you. It's coming out of there. When we release that album,
marketing,
all of it's coming out of there. So by the time they come back from that first tour, thinking that they've got like the world on a string, record company says, you owe us.
Right.
Because you blew your budget, and now you're in debt. And they're stuck.
The time's 8:46. I saw something that was pretty, I noticed something that was taking place during the pandemic. It got worse. I saw it kind of before the pandemic, but the pandemic really made it bad. So before the pandemic, I was, like I said, I see a lot of bands and stuff like that, go around and see folks, and they're playing, and maybe they're consistent at like Law Office Pub.
Yeah.
They're consistent at Ballydoyle. They're consistent at Pig Dog, all these places. But when the pandemic came, and sometimes even before that, like they would, like when we started the podcast, people would always come to me like, Curtis, man, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. But these guys were guitar players.
Yeah.
Bass guys.
Yeah.
And I was seeing them other places. And so they started recording, maybe you'll see an episode here, maybe two.
Yeah.
Then there's no more episodes. And they get jaded because like
they didn't get the following.
They're not
right
Rogan
away.
now, right?
Yeah.
They don't have, there's not 7 million followers on Spotify. They don't, the Cadillac with the 20-inch rims isn't outside. And I've always been, but they're mad because like nobody's supporting me.
Yeah.
Well, that's not how you started off.
Yeah.
You were a guitar guy. They were supporting you.
Yeah.
You're supposed to do it for, just in my opinion, you're supposed to do it for the people who are listening.
Yeah.
Like when I only had 3 people listening,
you were still doing it.
I was doing it for Tracy Duran, Vanessa Rodriguez Aguirre, and like Norma Peterson.
Oh yeah.
You can't jump ship because to me it makes me question your intention from the start.
Yeah.
Were you even serious when you began? When you
probably not. They were looking for, they were hoping for something easy to fall into there. A lot of people do that.
People want to get famous. They don't having and caring about your talent seems to have gone by the wayside. People just want to,
and they take their talent for granted. Once again, some people just sacrifice it for the money.
Right.
They'll use it for all the wrong reasons just to make a buck. That, like I said,
I feel a story come up. Was that a story?
No, it's probably to my detriment, but like that's been my approach, and I haven't made it big. I've had a couple really cool moments, opening up for Robert Randolph at a sold out show at the Park West, which just fell into my lap. I've played with some great people who have played with some great people. But that was like a great gig, and they treated us great, except for Robert himself. And then, but like his management team, they hired us for the night because a band fell through, and I had like a mutual friend. We played. We were outselling him at the merch table. Mm-hmm. It was a great night. And his management team comes over and they're like, I want to introduce you to my boss. He loved you. Follow me. I start walking. He's like, here, just wait a second.
Right.
He disappears. Doesn't come back. Happened like 4 times throughout the night where he's just like, you gotta meet this guy. And he'd walk me halfway through the place and then be like, just a second, and disappear. And then at the end of the night, he's like, let's go meet Robert. We're gonna go on the bus. And he walks me up to the door of the bus. They open the door, and he's like, I'll be right back. And I close the door, and I'm just standing there. I'm like, what is going on? I'm grossed out by people in the music business. They're weird.
Is that the only thing wrong with it?
Well, yeah.
If it wasn't for that, would it be better? I'm sure it'd be better.
I don't know. But... I mean, Frank Zappa said it. He was interviewed before he passed away, and he was saying, the worst thing that happened to the music business is people that thought they knew what music was supposed to be took over the business. He said, and you look at it, the biggest creative boom in the 60s and 70s and all that stuff, he's like, the music business was run by rich people that just had money to throw away.
Right.
And they didn't, they would see things and they're like, I don't know if it's good, but, I guess let's give it a try.
Right.
They were willing to try. Now it's in such a way that, like, nobody wants to try. The only way you're going to get somewhere is if you have money backing you right off the bat now.
Right.
And they see that there's a big push behind you. No manager will even touch you unless you have money and a following behind you. They don't want to do the work on the front end to get you there.
Right.
They're just waiting for you to get there so that they can take their cut. And to me, that is what's wrong with the music business. It's become, it's too much business and not enough music. But like I said, there is plenty of great music out there, and it is functioning in an independent realm where there are these indie labels popping up. But these labels, some of my favorite labels, they go under real quick because, while they're putting out all this great music, the people that are backing it, they're losing their head on it.
Right.
Because they're doing it for the right reasons. They see something like that is connecting, and they feel the weight of it, and they're willing to, throw something behind it. They're willing to throw themselves behind it. Unlike, you look at Sony, who is still defending Dr. Luke or whatever that fool's name is, who is like, going around abusing women. He's a producer. Kesha and all that stuff. Kelly Clarkson.
Yep.
God knows who else. You look at Weinstein.
Yep.
These entertainment businesses, all of them, they get to a point where they believe they're God, and they
act
treat people like they're scum. I mean, they everything is disposable.
Right.
And to me, the only people that should be thrown out are those scumbags. And you need to wash them out. You need to get back to the roots of why music connects with people.
Well, I think we can start getting back to those roots tonight at 8:30. I'll tell you this. You just secured yourself a part 2. That's what you did. Because we got a lot to talk about. But I want to, Tom Ritchie, good morning. Ryan Carney says, thanks for revealing some of the lesser known truths about music in the digital world. And he says, he concurs, music is the universal language. Indeed, very powerful. Looking forward to seeing your work at the venue on November 11th. That's Tracy Duran. And Valerie, Leon, Dante Battle, Victoria Plata, good morning. Microwave, I'd rather have mine stewed. Leon, Dante Battle.
Oh, yeah.
All right. What can we expect tonight at 8:30 at Pollyanna?
Music.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. Right. Yeah, we kind of keep things loose. We like to jam. We got some tunes that we really like to play. But yeah, it's just going to be a nice night of acoustic music. I mean, everyone's heard cello, everyone's heard guitar. Not many people have heard them mashed together the way that we do it. Ryan's actually a bass player, so I mean, that. He switches between playing the cello like a bass and playing the cello like a cello.
Okay.
But we try and keep it loose and stuff like that. I'm really hoping to get a lot of people out November 11th to the venue. That is, probably the biggest show I've got.
It's a Saturday.
It's a Friday. It's a Veterans Day. I've got my original, the Noah Gabriel band. We're going to be opening up the night. Ryan, Chris, and I are going to be playing little sets in between.
Okay.
There's 4 different bands. So then, the arcade is going to close out the night. My friends Dave Vermont and Dave Nelson are going to flesh out some stuff from my more Americana, rootsier albums like Austin Bound. I've been working on a series of blues paintings featuring artists from...
They're great.
Thank you very much.
They're great.
Thank you.
They're absolutely wonderful, by the way.
Yeah. So I've been working on that in conjunction with... I'm getting ready to finish up an album of bluesy R&B, like rootsy stuff, kind of like an homage to Aurora and my roots as a musician.
Okay.
So if people can come out, that would be great. It's going to be a lot of original music covering 20 years of material. The players are great. I've been truly lucky and blessed to have the people around me that I have. Unfortunately, not everybody that I've been able to play with over the years is going to be there and playing. But if this goes well, hopefully it'll lead to a part 2 where I can, bring in some of the other groups and revisit some of the other stuff and put some of the new stuff forward.
Carmen Mann Hampson. She says, wonderful interview. This is what makes your music so special, Noah. Your honesty in your music helps us all feel more honest with ourselves and makes the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you.
I concur with that. Cello and guitar together in Wayne Speak. If you call, they will come. Noah's Arcade, Wayne's World. Leon Dante battle. Yeah, keep tuning in, man.
He's awesome.
I like Leon.
I
like Leon already.
I met him when I was like, he was my first fan, outside of my parents.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah, I was playing Relay for Life at the Kane County Cougars Stadium.
Okay.
Like playing middle of night. It's a whole night event. I don't know if they still do it, but it's a big cancer benefit where
right.
People just they walk around the field the whole night raising money for cancer in memory of those they lost. But yeah, I mean, one of my first shows was playing that. I got to sit down in the middle of the field and play to thousands of people walking around. I had no idea what I was doing. I had
See?
But
you are big time.
Yeah.
You big time.
But Leon
man.
was there.
You are.
And he's remembered me ever since then.
That's what makes
man.
you big time.
Yeah.
That's what makes you big time. Who was it that said was it Wayne Gretzky? Little shots are just or big shots are just little shots that keep shooting?
Yeah.
You big time, man.
Yeah.
You are. If all it took to be, or if the definition of being somebody was just strictly the Spotify numbers and the big stuff, that would make it cheap.
Yeah.
What matters is that and the people who tune in to watch a brother.
Yeah.
So, the time is 8:59 a.m. Okay, 2 things before we wrap this show up. So you're definitely coming back for part 2.
Okay.
So we'll just work that out.
Right.
I want to say shout out to Melissa Mercado and the entire staff of the venue. They're great people over there. Jennifer Ryan Maiden and the family. Shouts out. But also before we go, what's the song that best describes you and your life?
Song by another artist? Are you thinking?
Yep.
Everyone's gonna laugh because I never thought I would say this about this song. I've been a recent convert to Bruce Springsteen.
Okay.
Just in the last 10 years, I've gotten into him, and it's because I've heard him talk about his songs and stuff like that. And Dancing in the Dark always drove me nuts as a kid. The production, the video with Courtney Cox, dancing all crazy on stage and all that stuff. It wasn't until, I don't even think until like a year or so ago when I sat down and read the lyrics of the song and listened to it. And there are so many Springsteen songs that feel like my life, you know. He talks about, you know, working hard, trying to make a name for himself and feeling as though he's fading into the nothingness and the noise of the scene around him. You know, when you spend, you know, 3-4 nights a week going to places, playing, and, you know, a lot of nights I'm playing to nobody.
Right.
I mean, a lot, you know. And then there's nights where I'm playing to people and it's just missing them. You know, they're not there for music. I'm there. I'm Spotify.
Right.
You know, they don't want to invest in me. It's kind of soul crushing, you know. But at the same time, I have those nights where it's like people's eyes are glued. You know, they're listening. They're not just there to drink and I happen to be playing music. They're there listening. That's why I'm excited about the venue show. It's a listening room. I do my best work in listening environments when people invest themselves in what I'm actually doing. And Springsteen has a way of conveying that just really cuts right down to it and makes sense. You know, a lot of days I don't want to be me. If I could shut off the thing that makes me think this stuff all the time, that'd be super. You know, I could maybe enjoy living what people call a normal life. But I don't know how to not think about music and art and creating and doing stuff. And sometimes it's, you know, that's a dangerous thing. But
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
I know the feeling. I got my dancing in the dark too.
Yeah.
You know, I think we all do, whether you're a Springsteen fan or not. The time is 9:02. The show ends on a positive note. What is your message today to the listeners and to the people of Aurora?
You know, I find that people trying to change the world these days are trying to change the world at large. And I think if you really want to fix the things that you see wrong in the world, you got to fix what's around you. So give love to the people that you see on a daily basis. Treat them the way you want to be treated. Listen to them. You know, a lot of times that's what people need these days. They just need someone to listen to. People are to listen to them. You know, we've all got our stories. We've all got our brokenness, and we just got to be there for each other to help, you know, pick up the pieces and you know, show people, you know, that they're not alone, you know. So just give love. Give love.
I want to say thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad I met you, man.
I'm very glad
I met you. We hope that all of you guys enjoyed today's episode. Please, Pollyanna Brewing Company tonight. The show starts at 8:30 p.m. Our friend Noah featuring Ryan Carney, Christopher, Paul, Miria. And then also November 11th will be the show at the venue. That's Friday, Veterans Day. Come on out for 20 years in the Valley at the venue. I am your host. We'll see you Monday morning. Take care of yourself and each other. Peace.